Hi, welcome to day 3 of Know Yourself. Today we work on the escapes, where to go and how to find. It happened to me many times that even that I stopped gaming, I stopped the gaming addiction, I still watch videos and I almost spend the same time watching videos about gaming than actually gaming. And I think that's a form of sublimation, when we take it to a level that we are still feeding some craving that we have inside, but we suppressed in some sense. So I wanted to make this day about the escapes that are there that may be preventing us to keep on track, to keep on our mission to find our purposes and massive transformational purposes to solve big problems of the planet. So this is going to be a complement of what we are working. We are still working on finding our passions and purposes, so we keep motivated and knowing our fears, so we know what is pushing, knowing the fears, adversities, the problems of the planet. That is another part of the motivation. Okay, first we go with this dynamic of today. Escapes, as I was telling now, was a subtle way of escaping. I was watching videos, and we now have easy ways of escaping. We have the cell phones, and we can check out at any moment and be elsewhere just by a few clicks. So in this time of escaping ourselves, escaping wherever we are, I want to bring this psychoneurobiology, that is the understanding of primal systems that still are working in ourselves. For example, the reptilian brain, or the amygdala brain, the most core part of the brain, that the first one that developed, operates on this system of fight or flight. You may have heard the fight or flight reaction. So whenever we detect a threat, something that is threatening us, that may be not a lion, maybe not a predator that was the original function of it, but now we have other senses of adversity, like in my case could be like my mother, when I was scared of my mother when she was catching me gaming because she was judging me. Those subtle threats that can be more invisible, but we process them with that part of our systems. So I will amplify a little bit on that, our reaction to fear. That can be the flight or the fleeing, trying to escape. The freezing, we suddenly cannot move, we mobilize ourselves, or we fight, we suddenly react and feel fighting towards that. Whenever we detect in whatever subtle form that we are doing that, we will be able to change it. That's why the awareness on how we are escaping, how we are reacting, how we are freezing, even that we don't stop moving, but we may be stop doing, we can immobilize our actions towards certain things. That's a way of freezing. So, how aware we are when we escape? What are the situations that triggers those reactions on us? That's what I want to invite today, is this awareness of how I am escaping from those fears that I've been contemplating in meditation, that can still come up or show in the situations. So when we are aware of some conduct or behavior or reaction, we have alternatives. Whenever we can stop and see, okay, this is the natural alternative, the natural road I would take with my reaction, now we can change it. And for understanding the alternatives, where to go, we have a preset focus. There's a framework of possible alternatives of what I can do. And this can be leaning towards or tending to see adversity, for example, that, wow, there's a problem and it could get worse, and like pessimistic views. Like, this problem can there was a teacher of the school that says, don't play with a plug because it could jump a spark and then burn all the school and we all die. It was like an extreme case, but that's an perfect example of thinking that we are so weak, like there are many, like the escalation of adversity can make a catastrophe. That's the catastrophization that's called. So we can have a tendency of that pessimism that makes us weaker. The adversities, each time that they present, they're harder, and we're enslaved by anything that presents us a resistance. That if we have the framework towards watching the adversity. As we talked yesterday in the fear equation, we change the focus on that and see what are our character, our capacity, our resources in whatever situation, and we will be diminishing fear. So that's why we're working in the finding our passions, finding what triggers us, what motivates us to be better, to grow, to learn, to develop ourselves. And that's what we are doing this. So this is easy said and more complicated to work on it. There's another part in the neuroscience, in the neurobiology of us, that is called the reticular activating system. And this will be an ally of us to change this framework of where my attention goes. So the reticular activating system works as a search engine. What I am looking for, what is leading my focus. So when we do these acts of awareness, we can stop and take another road, take alternatives. That's what we are working on. So instead of choosing fear, first we know which are the triggers, the fears that we have. This is one of the causes. And we know what drives us, what motivates us, and we can, instead of focusing in the fear, we use the impulse of escaping and we go towards where we want to go, because we know that road. And that's what we are going to find when we have our passions. We will be able to change or tweak a little bit the escaping routes. For example, when we are in the cell phone, now it's a perfect example. I was watching videos of the gaming, and instead of watching videos of gaming that are not bringing me no value, no growth, and no development, I satisfy that because I search in my interests that gaming is a part of it, the teamwork, the development of a hero, a strong character is one of my passions. So I started inquiring of the hero's path, for example, and saw a video on Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, instead of the video of gaming. So I grew, learned something, and I could tweak that impulse to escape and just get weaker and feed that part of me, that dragon inside of me that wants that, let's say, junk food in information. So this is an awareness act, and to solidify it, because yes, I can be aware, but then we have to solidify. That's what we're doing today. In whatever part you are in the finding, in the interconnectivity of curiosities, and saying, oh, okay, there are 3, 4 that are leading me to this part, celebrate that finding. Celebrate and acknowledge, even that you kind of knew, or you knew, hey, I never saw it this way, or didn't ever saw the connections that this passion had. And also, when you start doing the cross match of what are your passions and the problems of the world, play around with that, with playfulness, curiosity, and that will trigger the sense of purpose. It's like, okay, I am not only doing this because of me, I am doing this because it's a higher reason, it's beyond myself. So that's when we find our purpose. That's when we make a purposeful framework of our reality. So that's what we're building. And now, whatever finding you have these days, acknowledge yourself, and every time you want to do something that may be distracting you, making you weaker, catch yourself, be mindful, do this mindful practice of, am I escaping? I am going to eat something because there was some emotion that I want to escape. Okay, instead of, if you catch yourself already go in the kitchen, instead of the cookie, the whatever low quality food, you change it to an apple, or a glass of water, or a tea. Whatever part you can change of the process, you reward it. So then, when you catch yourself, you can start having control of where you're leading and when you did findings. So these findings, you celebrate them, and well, that celebration will start solidifying this new framework for being more purposeful. Okay, that's the homework for today, having this awareness act, having these pauses and detections of what I am fearful of, and having the introspection while we do defining the fears and leading ourselves towards our purposes. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.